Right, today we're off on an exciting hunt. We're going to try and find the Dun of Evan. It's an old ancient fort near the village of Cawdor in Nairnshire. It's out in the woods and we're going to try and find it by using the Ordnance Survey map and a wee bit of local knowledge. So come with me and we'll see what we can find. Sometimes these forts are deep in the forest and they take quite a bit of finding. They need a bit of tenacity, a bit of perseverance and a bit of good luck. But today's fort is not like that at all. In fact, this one is dead easy to find, and you'll see why. We're just going to follow a track and it'll take us almost to the fort itself. So here we go. And today's expedition is not difficult at all. We have a track most of the way and it'll help us on our way. As you can see, it's a nice easy track to follow, and apart from a few junctions where you have to choose right or left, it's quite an easy and very enjoyable walk. A lot of the sites for these forts can be found in local history. It obviously can be found these days online, but a great source of information is Ordnance Survey mapping. And it's mainly this resource that I use all the time to find out all these different places. And here on the Ordnance Survey map, first find Nairn and then go southwest towards Cawdor. And once at Cawdor, carry on to Galcantry. At the crossroads, turn up the hill and park near Newlands of Budgate, and from there it's a pleasant walk to the fort. The fort, Dun Evan, has been known since ancient times. It also has the name of the Dun of Cawdor. And Dun Evan itself is a strange sort of name. My research has turned up nothing as to where this name perhaps came from. And the only hint in the landscape is that nearby there is a place called the Kirk of Bareven or Bereven. And again, it's a similar name, but the origins of it are just lost in the landscape. As you see along this part of the track, it slowly winds its way into these tall trees. And at one time, not too long ago, this whole area was in trees and the track was more difficult to find. You'll probably notice this part of our walk is starting to get into the trees. So I'm going to carry on the track and I'll take us over the little brow of the hill, down into a dip, and then we're getting quite close to our fort. Just behind me here is the final bit of track that leads us uphill to just below the ramparts of this fort. And when I say ramparts, they're really just stone walls. And we'll talk a wee bit about that up nearer the fort. But the track itself is quite muddy, hence the reason I've got boots. So without further ado, I think I'll just keep on going up and we'll see what we find at the top. The track gets really muddy and mucky here, and in fact you can just see how bad it actually is. So glad I put the boots on, but we'll keep on going and we'll get to the top in just a little while. Now the going underfoot's become that bad that I've taken to the woods on the side, and I'm making my way up through the trees. There's a bit of lovely moss, it's nice and spongy underfoot, and this will land us at the top of the slope and hopefully away from all the mud and the wetness. We're just coming to the head of the track, and I think through the trees I'm seeing, just looming up ahead of us, I'm seeing the bulk of the fort of Dunevin. Right, here we are. I'm just below the main steep slope. Now the slope itself is extremely steep, and if you should decide to visit, be very careful going up. It's both steep, rocky and slippy. So here I go, and we'll see how we get on and what we'll find at the top. Now the ascent itself is quite steep, but on this side, the sort of south side, almost southwest side of the fort, we stumble there, it's probably the easiest, but still extremely steep. So here we go. There's the skyline up above, so we've got a wee bit to go, but it's not too bad. We should make it. As we come up this little bit of slope, we see in front of us a definite ditch with the banks rising both on the left and the right. So perhaps evidence of a defensive structure. And here we are at the top. I'm a bit out of breath because it's steep, and I'm no spring chicken anymore. But once you get to the top, the views are absolutely tremendous. You can see the cloud factory in the background there. You can see right across to the Souters of Cromarty, and virtually looking all round, there's all sorts of landmarks. You can see why they built the fort here. And at the very top of the hill, the Ordnance Survey have built a triangulation pillar. It's surrounded by a lot of bushes, mainly blackthorn, and I suspect it won't be too long before it's engulfed once more. So you may be wondering, how old is this dun? How old is this fort? What era does it belong to? Well, it hasn't been precisely dated. The dates range between 2400 BC to 700 AD, which is a huge expanse of time. And the main reason for that, although it's had an archaeological survey or two, is there's been no datable finds. And it would really need an archaeological dig to try and find some archaeological finds to provide some dating evidence to tie this down to a particular period in our history. The hill itself rises to 6, 7, 8 feet, and it's bounded on one side by the River Nairn and on the other side by a smaller burn called the Alt Jarrig. Now, the position of it and its outlook over all the surrounding landscape means that it must have been a centre of considerable power, because it would have been seen from a long way around. Although the fort itself has been subject of a few archaeological surveys, because of all the tree cover and the bracken and everything, it was very difficult for the surveyors to establish exactly the makeup of the whole site. It's thought that there was probably 2 phases of building, with the initial one on top and then a defensive wall and ditch structure lower down. But without a proper clearance and a good archaeological survey and hopefully a dig, we won't know any more until that happens. Without clearing all the undergrowth, there's not a lot more to explore up here. We have the marvellous view, and we have the thought of all these people that thousands of years ago lived on this site. So that's about it for my summit survey. So it's only time for me to head back down and try not to slip and get safely back down to the bottom. So we'll see you soon. Thanks for staying with me.